Hello, British English with Maria here. So after my last episode where I was talking to David about ChatGPT and other things AI, today I wanted to do another episode on AI, but more specifically tailored to teaching because I'm an English teacher and I can't say I'm concerned about how AI will affect my future in this profession. However, it's something I'm thinking about. And it's something that affects me directly as well as my students. So I cannot help but think about it. I just can't afford to ignore it. So is AI a threat, as many people are saying? Well, my conclusion is that it is not. It is an enhancement tool for your teaching strategies and for classroom learning. And let me get into why I think that. You might disagree with me. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. So, from my learning experience and teaching experience, learning is interactive. It's not something that you just go and get information on. You need that time to think things through, to interact with someone, to feel that emotional involvement. And sometimes when students are a bit stuck, right, they don't know what's the next direction to take, and no AI will give that to them. It's absolutely impossible. At this stage, at least, maybe in the future, there will be a possibility. But sometimes I ask them probing questions. I kind of try to nudge them in the right direction and prompt them in a different way, depending on what they need. And for me, this can only be done by someone who's been teaching for some time and knows what they're doing. So for me, AI can't replace that at all, because if you think about it, the flow of information is just one way. It's from computers to students, right? I mean, students can input some questions, but sometimes they don't even know what to ask. That's the other thing, right? Because if you want to get the right information, you have to ask the right questions. And thinking about it, before AI, ChatGPT became more sort of popular and created all this hype, all the information was already on the internet. Everything is already out there. You have tons of videos and websites that you can use to learn. Yes, you don't have to scroll through them anymore, trying to find the right information and trying to understand what you need to learn. But AI will not design a plan for you in the same way a teacher would. And I think even if it does, sometimes AI might miss something that you might need. And an experienced teacher can really feel those weak spots that you need to cover, that you might think you have them covered. For example, I have lots of students who come to me and say, I know this piece of grammar, or I know this topic really well. And I never take their word, at face value. I know they think they know it, but there are always one or two little nuances that help them to understand it even more in depth, to gain a better understanding and to know the topic inside out and to be able to apply it much better. I know that intuitively, I kind of feel it out, and for the moment, there is no AI that can do that for you. And we have to understand that learning is not just getting pieces of information. Once again, all the information is out there on the internet. You can find it for free. However, it's the teacher's job to kind of ask the right questions, to prompt students to think, to add some creativity, some fun, some ideas, some energy. So some sort of light bulb lights up in the heads of the students when this happens. And that's what induces learning. The other thing is the personal relationship that you establish, that is established between a teacher and a student, because they understand your weak points, the teachers. They understand your fears. They understand that you are an emotional being. Too often AI just assumes that you can consume information like a robot. We're not robots. We are emotional. We need that guiding hand, that support. So often I get students who start a lesson, so they have it scheduled. Something might have happened in their life. They might not be feeling very well, or they're just feeling a bit down for whatever reason. And as we start the lesson and I try to go into the learning bit, and I can feel there is a block. They're just not open to it. I just feel a wall, and as a person, I can feel that wall. I can feel that barrier. AI can't feel that barrier. They don't have the sensitivity to do so. So once I feel that block, I try to kind of chit chat, do a bit of small talk, to try to distract the student, talk about something more fun or interesting, or even to get them to open up about something that's bothering them. Once they do that, suddenly they open up emotionally, and you need to be open emotionally to be able to learn. It's impossible to learn properly when you are blocked. I'm sure you've tried many times. It must have happened to all of us when we are trying to learn something and we're feeling emotionally blocked and we just cannot move forward. No matter how much we're staring at a book, no matter how much we're trying really hard to progress, we are just stuck, we are blocked. So having that person who can do that to you as a kind of psychologist, teachers have to be really good psychologists. And that's the other thing. Can AI be a psychologist? Maybe one day they can. But so far, I don't see that happening. So I'm not an advocate that everyone must get a teacher. Absolutely, I'm a self-starter. I love learning on my own. I'm someone who can hold myself accountable, but not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the discipline and the willpower to keep going for some period of time, but not for a long period of time. If you can, hats off to you, fantastic. But majority of the people are not like that. So a good teacher will hold you accountable to learning, and will kind of be, psychologists, they'll be your cheerleaders, they'll be cheering you on when you are making progress. They'll be there to hold your hand when you're stuck. They'll be there to, there's so much more than just knowledge stories, which for me is what AI is. It's interactive to an extent, but it's a knowledge story. It's not, there is that human connection and interaction that is lacking. If you think about it, that's why MOOCs, not sure if you know about this, but it's online courses where you could get a master's degree. So they all failed. It didn't take off at all. And this was basically self-controlled, distant learning, completely online, at your own pace. It just didn't work out. It sounded revolutionary. You could save a lot of money trying to get the knowledge and education online that you would get from your teachers or professors at universities, but it just didn't take off. Why? Well, because of all the aforementioned reasons that I brought to your attention. You need that human interaction. You need someone to hold you accountable. You need that structure. You need to feel that emotional connection. And that's what happens in live interactions, be that online or face-to-face, it doesn't really matter, but that live interaction is super, super important. So now I've made my case as to why AI cannot replace teachers. However, I am not someone that rejects technology. So at first I thought ChatGPT, what a hype, what a waste of time. However, I've now integrated it into my classroom learning. So sometimes the student says, well, I don't know what kind of expressions I can use here, what sort of idioms I can use to talk about so and so. They can go and look at it by themselves, of course. But sometimes during the lesson, you look it up quickly and you copy and paste it for them, and that quick learning happens, or they have an idea, they're sort of talking through about something, they want a decision they want to take in life, and they're not sure which direction to take. So sometimes they go, okay, well, here are some ideas, and I get that from ChatGPT, and I go, oh, that's interesting, maybe something to investigate. So you can get lots of synonyms. You can get, so say you have a word, you can have 20 sentences with that new word in the vocabulary. But at the same time, having said that, I have to filter out whatever ChatGPT gives out because it's not always relevant. So say you have a ton of synonyms, right? They're not all suitable for the context that you want to apply them to. You have to filter. And unfortunately, same as with the dictionary, you cannot filter it by yourself if you don't know how to use it. Of course, you can go through Google, use every word, see what the context is, do all that work. However, a teacher can make it so much faster for you. They can go, okay, this word you can use in this way. This word doesn't really work. This word you can, but it expresses a different sentiment. So that's something that's still lacking in ChatGPT for me personally. And actually, I did an experiment. I got a list of synonyms the other day for my student, and I didn't like what I saw. So then I went on Google and I did the search there. And I thought the list was so much better. The words that were proposed were much, much more suitable. So again, you could kind of go, oh yeah, that's information, I'm going to learn it. But you have to filter it. You have to sort, the good from the bad. And how can you do that if you don't know what is the good and what is the bad? That's again where the teacher comes in. I had a student the other day who told me he uses, I think, Slack for correcting his writing. I know people use Grammarly as well. Again, I tried to use ChatGPT. I experimented. So I had a text which I corrected with my French teacher. And I thought, let me put it in ChatGPT as it was before the correction and see what ChatGPT does to it. Honestly, it missed out on so many things in terms of lexis, in terms of the best expressions to use that my teacher provided to me. So from my experiment, it was not comprehensive enough. It wasn't conclusive enough. The other problem that I have with ChatGPT that people use these days is to write up some things. And whilst you are short of time, or you are, running late, or you really just don't have the time to learn how to write, for example, emails properly, and you just need to get an email out quickly, yes, great, use it. But you'll never learn how to write it from scratch. If you never learn how to write from scratch, you will never develop those neurotic connections in your head. Neuron connections, sorry, I don't know the right term there. But basically, you're not learning, you're just taking the output and using it without really questioning it. Now, some of you might say that you might pick up the output and then you question it and then you dissect it and you just go through it step by step, and you analyze, evaluate, and you learn from whatever ChatGPT or other AI gave you the corrections to. Again, it might not be your objective to learn how to write, but I always say to my students who come to me just for speaking, I say writing is a fantastic skill. You learn how to plan things in advance, you think ahead. Writing from scratch by yourself is of immense value. The other thing, right, that I find is when students come to me with some sort of writing or some sort of speaking, I don't often give them the answer directly. I say, this is the answer. I go, okay, this is wrong. Okay, we have a think about what is wrong here. So them being actively involved in that process of identifying their own mistakes with me, and I go, maybe yes, maybe, you try to figure out the answer together without telling them what the answer is. Too often when you see the final answer, and I'm guilty of this as well, when I see the final answer, sometimes when I'm stuck with some grammatical exercises, I just jump to the answer, and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense. You're not really questioning things properly. You're not really learning as much as if you did it first and then you try to figure out the answer in the process to say if it's wrong, if it's right. I saw the benefit with students who were learning that way. They learned so much faster. They understood things better. They were involved in their learning actively rather than just seeing the final answer. Seeing the final answer, you can dissect it bit by bit, but it takes a lot of energy and willpower, and we are lazy. Let's admit it. We are lazy human beings. We will take shortcuts where we can. And again, nothing wrong with that, but you're not really learning. So if you're okay with that, fine. By all means, go ahead. But if you actually want to learn properly, be able to write things from scratch by yourself, to learn how to write in English properly by yourself, you cannot just rely on AI, all the time. You have to use your brain, and the teacher can help you. Just highlight the bits where you made a mistake and you can go, okay, I think this is wrong, this is wrong. Just being involved in that interactively and actively can really enhance how much you pick up and how much you absorb during that interaction. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, or I really wanted to share my thoughts on AI affecting teaching effectively. And I'll be happy to hear your comments if you use AI for your learning, or if you're a teacher, if you use AI for your teaching. How do you use it? What do you think of it? But thank you for tuning in and have a fantastic day. This was British English with Maria.